Hey everybody, it's Mama Deb. It's that time again on Monday night. Welcome to Let's Get Real About Mental Health. Before I jump right into it, I just want to do a couple of things. First off, I am flying solo tonight. My producer Beck has moved, so his internet is not hooked up yet. So all I ask is be kind, be patient, and hopefully we'll get through this together. So I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday night. As you can see, I am the spirit of Halloween. Changed my background. Love me some Halloween. Love everything about it, especially Hocus Pocus. Hocus Pocus 2 came out, I believe, actually on the last day of September. So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm kind of excited to see where that's going to lead us. I haven't seen it yet. I'm holding out for a little bit to see if what the reviews are saying. So you guys, October is Depression Awareness Month. And I know that, given the channel's called Let's Get Real About Mental Health, I know that we all know that I talk about depression. I've talked about depression in the past on this show. What I'd like to talk about tonight, though, is some new things that I've found out in my reading and some of my research, and focus on one particularly ugly part of depression that most of us would rather we got to sweep it under the rug and forget it ever happened, because not only is it embarrassing for us, it requires that we check ourselves and really take a good hard look at ourselves. So it's not the best thing to have happen. But we're talking about the breakdowns. Yes, the breakdowns. So while I am reading that, goodness gracious, I'm already getting sound off. Support letter. What is going on? Sorry, there we are. Okay. So, I'm trying to get everything, settled. But before I start getting into anything big, I want to read something to you guys. And I think it's really important, because this gives you a really good idea of what it's like to have, I'm going to sneeze first though, what it's like to have anxiety and depression. And it is absolutely, in my opinion, is crippling. And I'm sure there are many people out there that would agree with me. So let me read this for you. Having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's a fear of failure, but with no urge to be productive. It's wanting to have friends, but hating to socialize. It's wanting to be alone, but not wanting to be lonely. It's caring about everything, then caring about nothing at all. It is feeling everything at once, and then feeling paralyzing numbness. That sums this up for me completely, because that is my life right there. As any of you know me, you'll know that the way my love language is to care and to provide for people. My favorite form of my love language is to cook and take care of people. That's what I like to do. That's how I express and show that I love people. And there are days when that is absolutely that's all I want to do. And I will do it. I will get up and I will do it, and I'll cook all day long. And then the next day I can barely get out of bed. So I think that's something that we totally need to think about when we're talking about depression awareness and depression and anxiety, is that there will be days when you are on the highest of highs and you're able to do everything you want to do, and it's such a great day. And then you could wake up the next day and not care. You'd be so numb, like, I can't even get out of bed. And I'm not saying that's normal, but is within what we would consider the realm of acceptable signs and symptoms of depression and anxiety. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to briefly touch on the different types of depression. We all know that there are 12, I believe, types of depression. And the first would be major depressive disorder. Okay. That's for people like me who have had chronic major depressive disorder since I was about 15, 16, got diagnosed when I was 17. There's persistent depression. There is bipolar depression. There is seasonal depression, psychotic depression, postpartum depression, premenstrual depression, and situational depression. There are so many types of depression out there. And what I think the most important thing is that we have to look at, doesn't matter the type of depression that you have, what matters is that you get the help that you need and that you find a way to get through what's going on in your life. And as you'll see on the banner below, this is my main belief in dealing with depression. Your support systems are absolutely vital. You cannot get through them without you just can't. There's absolutely no way. If you try to get through your major depression, any form of depression without a support system, you're going to find yourself walking up an incredibly steep hill, uphill, both ways, in the snow, barefoot, like our grandparents did trying to get to school. So, I encourage it. I encourage that you have a support system and you understand how important that support system is. Now, those of us that play support system to people who have depressive disorder, and those of us who have it, we will often play support to other people because we understand how hard it is. It is so hard when what we're focusing on tonight happens. It's the mental breakdown, the nervous breakdown, the emotional breakdown, whatever it is. This is my own personal opinion. I have no research backing it up. It's just from my personal experience that when we have those people who are our support system, who are our friends and our families, when we have these breakdowns and we've reached our breaking point and there's nowhere to go except for all this crap to come screaming out your mouth and to be either angry or violent or whatever the case may be, it is often on those that support us the most. And support people, I'm talking to you right now. I know it's hard. I know it's so damn difficult to deal with those particular situations. Please remember, it's not personal. It's not personal. And probably it's actually in some way a twisted compliment. I know that sounds silly, but hear me out. That when you have someone in your life that suffers from these disorders, like I do, we come uncorked on the people that we absolutely believe in the most, the people we know that will not leave us behind. The people who we trust and love the most are the people that we come uncorked on. And that does not make y'all's life easy. It makes it very difficult for anybody who's a support system, because it's like beating your head against a brick wall. But it's not personal. It's not intentional. You just happen to be standing. You were the closest object to when my cork blew, and it all came out all over you. So with that being said, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the dreaded breakdown. You guys all know, if you're as old as I am or older, we used to call it a nervous breakdown. You had a nervous breakdown, or you had a mental breakdown, or you have, now we call them emotional breakdowns. Either way, what happens is that something has tipped the scales in our life, and it has gone over. The scales have just completely tipped, and we no longer can keep in the sadness, the rage, the stress, the emotional stuff we've been stuffing down because we don't know how to deal with it any longer. And it just comes spewing out, whoever is closest to us. And, we've all been there. We've absolutely all been there. And we all understand what it's like to be on the receiving end and also on the giving end. So what can we look of for when we're talking about a definition? Let's look at a definition first off. It's an intense physical, emotional, or stressor that makes it difficult to openly cope or function effectively in your life. It is a failure in your system, your coping mechanism system. It is a failure there because you just tip the scales. You cannot take anymore. Okay? And that's rough. That, by definition, I'm sure I'm sitting here going, God, I remember the last one I had. It was ugly. It was absolutely ugly. And I can pinpoint the event that put me there. Okay. So we'll talk about the signs and symptoms of it leading up to it. And that's one of the things is that we have to be able to recognize or start to recognize these signs and symptoms in ourselves. It gets easier the older that you get, the more therapy you get, the more love that you the more love that you get from your friends and the more medication and therapy you get for yourself, the more you love yourself and support yourself, you're going to find these symptoms and you'll start to recognize them. So the signs and symptoms that you might be on the verge of having these types of breakdowns, you're on edge. You have a sense of doom. Either you have no energy or you're fatigued all the time. It's an intense sadness, anxiety, worrying about every little thing. That sounds like somebody we all know. You feel guilt over any decision you make to have self-care. You feel worthless. You're angry, you're irritable, you have mood swings and outbursts. You have a decreased activity level. You increase your isolation, and you have thoughts of self-harm. The thing that usually tips this from a mental, emotional, or nervous breakdown to really scary stuff is when you start to change the way that you look at life. And you start saying things like, the world's better off without me. I should just end it and let everybody else not have to deal with my bullshit anymore. That's when you go from being a mental, emotional, or nervous breakdown to a true mental health emergency. Because now we are actually looking at suicidal thoughts or self-harm, attempts at self-harm. And people are like, oh, well, self-harm. No, self-harm very much falls in the realm of these mental outbreaks or these emotional outbursts that we have, because we are harming ourselves by blowing up every good thing that we have in our lives. And that is actually a form of self-harm that we're now professionals are starting to now look at, healthcare professionals are now starting to look at and go, oh, this is a little more serious than we initially thought it was, because that actually is a form of self-harm. Wow, right? That's a depressing subject matter, Deborah. But the other thing that we have to remember is that these emotional or nervous, mental breakdowns, whatever you want to call it, have accompanying physical symptoms. And that's something that I don't think people who don't have or have not dealt with somebody who has a mental health disorder realize. We can present ourselves and start having physical symptoms because we have stuffed so much down emotionally and mentally that there's no other way for it to come out other than starting to display physical symptoms. And you can ask anyone who is in the healthcare profession, stress has a real effect on the body. And those effects start to present themselves as things like dizziness, nightmares, sweating profusely, muscle tension, difficulty breathing, irregular heartbeats, poor eating habits, shaking or tremors, insomnia or hypersomnia, which is sleeping a lot, and GI symptoms. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have every single one of these all at one time. These are just an example of what the body can do to help. This is your physical body trying to deal with your mental health disorder in a way that you actually, and again, we know a lot about the human brain, but not as much as we should. Okay. And personally, it makes sense to me that when we are having this emotional traumatic time in our life, that our brain goes, okay, if you're going to ignore the emotions, then I'm going to give you some physical symptoms that you have to fixate on so that you're going to get the help you need. Now, does that make sense scientifically? Probably not. But we don't know enough about the human brain to be able to say that it's not compensating in some way or another for what's going on with us emotionally or mentally. So when we're talking about what causes these breakdowns, I'm going to tell you now that the main reason we have these breakdowns or whatever's been going on in our life is not usually what triggers it. It's not. I'm going to use my father as an example. Unfortunately, 23, 24 years ago, my brother was shot and killed. And we all got through the trial, the burial, all of that stuff. And he was killed in December. So that following summer, we were having a picnic. And the grandkids were sitting in the yard, on their blanket, eating their hamburgers and their chips and all that good stuff. And one of them dropped their plate and some chips spilled on the grass. My dad lost his ever-loving mind. Okay? He started screaming about the chips and the grass then would have ants, and the ants would be everywhere, and he's going to have to spend all this money exterminating the ants, and why can't we just be a little more careful? He taught us kids to teach our children better than that. Yeah, okay, so that had nothing to do with those chips being spilt on that grass. Absolutely nothing. It had to do with my dad's inability to take it's not even inability. I'm sorry, that's the wrong word. My dad had reached his breaking point of stress and mental despair and grief, and it just came flying out of something very simple. So when we have these breakdowns, it usually comes from an unexpected trauma that could have happened months ago or could have happened 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It's just when you reach your limit when this stuff starts to come out. For my dad, my brother was 28 years old when he passed away. And it was a horrible thing because, he survived war twice and been in the Marine Corps and been fine, but he comes home stateside and ends up getting shot and killed. That absolutely is not acceptable. And in my dad's mind, there was nothing he could do. He likes to control things and fix things. He could control and fix the fact that there were chips in his yard. He just blew for absolutely no reason. And that, I will tell you that my father should have probably been admitted to a psych ward for a nervous breakdown. However, in my family, we don't do such things. We just stuff it and try to do the best that we can. So he literally spent I think about 12 to 16 hours in bed saying nothing to anybody. And that's not an acceptable way to do things either, but it did get him through. And for him, the best thing we could do was get his pastor out to him because he's a deeply religious man and he found comfort in that. So whatever works for him, works for him. But that's the kind of things that happen with these breakdowns as they come out of freaking nowhere. You're like, oh, okay. So what do you do when this happens? And y'all know I had one. Not proud about it, but I had one all over Mr. Beck's stream. Okay. Lost my mind over something that was not as important as I thought it was. And I just had a lot of stressors going on in my life and I lost it. And the thing to remember is when this happens to you, you have to get some perspective. For me, the best thing I can do is okay. Oh, nope. I'm going to go take a walk until I can calm myself down. I'm going to take a leave of absence from whatever it is I'm doing. And I'm going to calm myself down because I can't see myself making any damn sense in the next few seconds, next few minutes, because everything that's coming out is from my emotional mind. All that crap I've been dealing with is right here in my brain. It's right here in the filter of my mouth, and it's going to come spewing out at somebody who does not even need to hear it. Someone who's probably been by my side and has helped me immensely through the things that are going on in my life. So once you get that perspective, now here's the key. They say, it takes 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and you realize, oh shit, I was wrong. I got to fix this. Some people, it can take up to 48 hours, people. There's no time limit on getting your perspective, okay? The thing is you have to get that perspective. And you have to realize that you caused some harm. For me, it took about 10 minutes. And I came back in and I apologized to everyone. And then I apologized again a couple days later because I felt so terrible about what I did. You get that perspective and you're like, shoot. Just because we're having, and not just because, if you're having an emotional, nervous breakdown, mental, whatever it is, because you have to realize that even if you didn't mean it, even if it was completely emotions from some other incident, but it came out on the people in front of you, you are still going to have to handle the carnage that you created. What I mean by carnage, I'm not trying to sound like death and doom, but sometimes that's what it feels like to the people who are trying to support us, is that like a heavy hammer came down on them for nothing. They did nothing, okay? And you have to come back and you have to own it. That's part of being a grown-up with a mental health disorder. It absolutely is. So for me, I came back in and I apologized and I said I was sorry and I cried and I'm like, you know what? And I had to take a couple more days to focus on my self-care. On self-care, you know, that's an individual thing. We all have to realize like what we need to regroup and get things back in order or to feel the way we need to feel. For me, it's probably not the healthiest thing. In fact, I know it's not the healthiest thing. I eat too much, probably drink too much, probably smoke too much pot. That's all something I would do. But I take a deep breath. I'm like, okay, what just happened here? Why did it happen? And I don't allow myself to berate myself, which is actually something that a lot of people will do. They'll berate themselves and say, you're stupid, you're dumb, you shouldn't have done that. Again, right here, I do that a lot. Don't do that. Just think through it from your unemotional mind and just kind of go, okay, all right, now I know what I need to do. And then you have to seek the support that you so absolutely desperately need. And a lot of times, you guys, those of us who've done this, we actually hurt the people who support us the most. And you definitely have to get back in there and you have to own your mistakes and you have to tell them, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not going to offer an excuse. They know what the excuse is. They know you just had a break. Don't offer the excuse. Just offer the apology and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I should not have done that to you. I was in a, leave your excuses to the side because they know. They are well aware of what happened, but you just have to own your actions without excuses. And that will gain you a whole lot of love and a whole lot of respect. And with a lot of love and a lot of respect, your support system is going to be willing to go through that more with you and support you through these bad times. Does that make sense, everybody? I hope it makes sense because I just talked myself out into a circle. So the other thing I really want to kind of talk about is like, how do we go to our support systems and how do we humble ourselves to our support systems and let them know, hey, this is what I did. I'm wrong. I'm sorry I hurt you. But how do you promise that's not going to happen again? How do you promise that I'm going to get better and I'm going to get help? Well, first off, don't ever promise yourself you're going to get better. Completely healed better is what I'm talking about. You're going to get better because next day it's going to be a little bit easier. And the next day it's going to be even easier. And you're going to have to take your good days with your bad days. And when you have your bad days, tell your support staff, hey, today is a really off day for me. And the fact that I'm having a bad day, I might need to excuse myself. And that's an acceptable action. And somebody just put up that, put it up here. I think I might have done that right. Yeah, I have PTSD also. And it is something, when I come out of one of my breaks and it's because of my PTSD, I feel like a complete horse's ass. Okay. I've been married to the man that I'm married to for 21 years. He loves me and treats me like the queen. I am the queen of his world as he is my king. Okay. I have thrown on this man. I have pushed him through walls, all because I was in a PTSD moment. I wake up and I come back to reality and I'm being held by the man who loves me and has stood by my side just saying, you're here now, Deborah. This is where we are. We're in Oregon. This is the date. It's okay. You're going to be okay. I still have to own that crap. And I've never felt so bad as I felt the day that I realized I blackened his eye with my fist because I don't remember doing it. I had to be told. I put my foot through the wall, all based on something that had happened. I think we were having an argument and he stood up tall against when we're close, and that triggered me back into a domestic violence situation. So we sat down, and this is what you have to do. When you have these incidents, you have to sit down with the people that you've hurt and say, hey, listen, What can I do to make this a little bit better? How can I handle this better? And they'll give you suggestions. Here's the key. You have to be open to the suggestions. You have to absolutely be open to changing the way that you're dealing with things, or open to somebody helping you change those things. It's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. In fact, it's probably one of the most humbling experiences I've ever gone through in my life. I had to beg and ask for help. But in my house, we no longer have arguments standing on our feet. He doesn't stand up. I can stand up because I'm super, super short. But he doesn't stand up anymore. And he doesn't corner me. Neither does my son. Neither of my sons can do that either, because they're so much taller than I am. And it makes me feel threatened. That's how we deal with things in my house. Because if I can remain in a rational mind and not get flipped, that switch get flipped, I can actually do what I need to do. And what I did was own it. I had to own it. I apologized and I said, I'm so sorry that I did what I did. No excuse, none. They knew what was going on. They knew I was having a flashback. They knew exactly where I was at because they handled it exactly the way that exactly the way that I do. I mean, they've lived with it for years. So that is actually something that, you need to be aware of, and you got to own it, and you got to know that despite how it happened or what had happened or the trauma that you lived through, you still have to own what happened, and you have to still apologize for the carnage that you created. And that has happened in my house more times than I can tell you. And I'm never proud of the incidents, but I actually have learned a lot from those incidences, where I now will take the break and I will say, I'll put up my hand and I'm like, you know what? I can't. I just can't. I'm feeling it. I know I'm on the verge of being triggered. I need to walk away. And that is not easy. That is not a point that you can easily get to. It takes a ton of work. I'm 52, y'all. I've had PTSD since I was in my 20s, and I just figured out probably in the last 15 years how, or no, that's not even right. It's probably in the last 7 years to figure out what I need to do to have a healthy and happy family that is dealing with somebody with PTSD. All right. Wow, that was a heavy topic, huh? I also want to talk about some really new things that I found out, and it's probably not all that new to people like student Dr. Ben or Jay, who is a nursing student. But this is something that I actually found really fascinating. I was reading an article of the Journal of Neuroscience, and it is published in the Harvard Medical Journal. And what it showed was a study. They took 24 women, okay, that have 24 women that have depression, 24 women that don't have depression, okay? And it is shown that women with depression have smaller hippocampuses than women without. A significant amount, in my opinion, 9 to 13% smaller. So, first off, what's the hippocampus? That is actually a portion of your brain that's in the temporal region of your brain. It's actually pretty deep in your brain. And it is responsible for things like memory, emotion. I wrote it down and now I lost it. We'll just go with memory and emotion for right now, but there's a lot of other things that are controlled in there as well. And the thing that they've also noticed with the smaller region of the smaller hippocampus, they've realized that there is a decrease in the neurons in that area. It's being hypothesized, and maybe probably further than that at this point, that stress causes a decrease in the neurons in that area of the brain. The neurons are the nerve cells. The nerve cells are the ways that the hippocampus will communicate with the rest of the brain. Here's the funny thing, y'all. It has been proven that antidepressants boost the concentration of the chemical messengers in the brain. Okay? It boosts it. That's what antidepressants do. The thing is, though, you're probably all going, well, if it boosts it, how come you don't feel better right away when you start taking an antidepressant? The reason you don't feel better is because it actually takes 4 to 6 weeks for not only now we have a concentration of the chemical messengers, now we have the pathways built so that those messages can get to the rest of the brain. So we are now, when you start an antidepressant and you're able to be on it for like 4 to 6 weeks, roughly, you'll see that you'll feel everything differently. And if the medicine's going to work, you'll start to feel better. And that's why, because we now have the concentration of the chemical we need, and now we have the pathways that can be delivered to the rest of the brain. The other thing is that, and this just made me go, interesting. So the hippocampus is memory and emotional response. Here's the thing that made me go, if stress, in theory, this is theory, stress decreases the size of it, depression decreases the size of it, it is actually a little bit more of an easy connection for me to make anyway, is that I'm wondering what the connection is between dementia and Alzheimer's to people who have depression. Because that area of the brain is also going to be affected by those two diseases. So it's very interesting to me to see what would happen with a study that a study of depression linked to Alzheimer's or dementia. And yeah, as fun as that sounds, like dementia isn't enough, or like Alzheimer's is not enough, we have to then concern ourselves with dealing with the possibilities of Alzheimer's and dementia. That's not the only factor, y'all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's a very interesting jump. That's where my brain went. And it's not like it's necessarily the way. I also know there's some genetic factors involved. And the thing is, you have to remember, with the human brain, we don't even use the whole thing. So being able to say this is linked to this directly, that's darn near impossible. You could have contributing factors. And I think that's what's really important when we talk about having contributing factors, as far as like, they say tomorrow, they say stress is directly linked to shrinking of the hippocampus, which has a direct link to depression. So the first thing you're going to tell us, and they tell us this already, reduce your stress. Yeah, I always want to put my hand up and I go, exactly how do you want me to do that? Because, I have a life. I'm a mom. I'm a spouse. I'm a daughter-in-law. I'm a friend. I have all these stresses in my life. And they don't mean avoid the people in your life. What they mean is to avoid things that compound the stress. And I know everyone's going to hate to hear this because I hated it when I read it, but reduction in caffeine intake it could be substantial depending on how much of a caffeineaholic you are. I am a huge caffeineaholic. Okay. That reduces my body's stress response. And the thing when I say stress response is like your body doesn't particularly know whether or not you're being scared and that's why you're stressed, or there's too much coming in on you and that's why you're stressed, or you're just drinking way too much caffeine. They all give you a similar response in the increase of heart rate, the increase, like, you get a little hot, you're like, oh, heart rate goes up. Those things all can look as the same initially. Now, I said exactly what Jason said here. Jason says it's not going to happen. Yeah. Here's the problem that I have. My caffeine addiction is completely 100% born out of necessity. I take enough medications that I would sleep all day, every day if I did not caffeinate myself. So what I've done now is, instead of saying, well, I'm just not going to stop. No, you're right. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop drinking caffeine. I'm just not. But what I am going to do is I'm going to increase my water intake. I'm going to increase it a lot. In fact, I'm allowed the one, and I get a big one. I get like 46 ounces. You didn't hear that? I get a really big glass of soda, and I then have to drink water for the rest of the day. And I will drink my alcohol when I come home, but I've also reduced my alcohol intake to, all right, I probably shouldn't show this on stream, but I'm going to do it anyway because you can't see. I am only allowed 2 of these a day. And I had a conversation with a really dear friend of mine. And I was like, I'm concerned about the amount of alcohol I'm intaking. I think it's really starting to affect me. And he happened to agree. And I'm like, well, why don't you just say something? Because I was waiting for you to come to me. And I appreciate that. I had to realize that myself, and I appreciate it. But I also appreciate the support that I got there. So I cut down my alcohol intake. I have increased my water intake. I have not changed my caffeine intake at all because I need it to get through my day. I honestly do. The other thing is like I try really hard to, most of us who are listening to this now live the same way I do. We do a lot of things online. We play a lot of games. We talk to people. We have a good time. I do that. But I also try to, when I'm done, I don't go directly to bed. I try to take an hour or so to decompress, maybe have a nice settling chamomile tea, take my medication, and just breathe. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But these are the things that I'm taking into account to help myself, to be aware of my self-care, which is a big thing when we're talking about depression awareness. We have to be aware. With the stuff that I read and researched, it really made me concerned about the things that I was doing in my life. And was I actually helping myself, or was I hurting myself? I honestly, I think I was probably hurting myself, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. The next key to it, you guys, and I have a particular hard time with this because I'm sure a lot of you know I have a really bad back, and gosh, shucky darns, I have arthritis, not one type, but two types running in my body. And that makes it very difficult for me to do probably the best thing we can do for ourselves as far as stress reduction, which is exercise. Meditation and exercise are key. Now, let's touch with meditation. I know several of you have ADD. I can last about 20 minutes before my brain starts going off 17 different directions and 17 other things that I need to do. Okay. I don't do that well, but it's 20 minutes before it was 5. So I really am trying to increase my time to and if I'm just laying there in bed, I wake up and I'm laying there and I'm like, okay, just take stock. Everything's fine. You have no pain. You slept good. Everything's going to be fine. I can't predict what everyone is going to happen in their day. I can just predict how I'm going to try to handle my day. Even if I just do that, that for me is a meditation. That is a way for me to just mellow and just not start my day with stress. Exercising, on the other hand, is something very difficult for me. They say, people are like, oh, you got to do all this different, exercise. Now, actually, if you take a 15-minute walk every day and slowly increase it to 30, you will reduce your stress significantly. Now, for somebody like me, I am only allowed to walk 10 minutes a day in increments, 10-minute increments. That's it. So we have to be concerned about that. I have a treadmill, so I can walk a little longer on that because it doesn't have all the bumps and unevenness that the road has. But I do the majority of my exercising in a pool because I don't have to have the stress on my joints it's not there. And that's what ends up hurting me is the stress on my joints. So, I mean, honestly, we can increase our water intake. We can probably, here's a thought, eat proper meals. Question? What exactly is a proper meal? There's so many thoughts out there. I think what they mean by that is more like a balanced meal. Don't eat fast food every single day of the week. Okay? Let yourself have it once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, whatever works for you. But try to get your vegetables in there. Try to get a balanced meal so it's not all crappy food, if that makes total sense to anybody. And I'm a low carb girl. I don't eat a lot of carbs. I don't eat a lot of sugar. That's because my body cannot handle it because I also have an autoimmune disease. And the more sugar and carbs that I intake, the higher the inflammation goes in my body, which is not a great thing for me at all. So you got to know your body. You got to know what you can and can't handle and what's the best way for you to handle it. There's no prescription in the world for everyone. Okay, there isn't. You have to really figure out what ways it works for you in what situation will work the best for you. For me, this is just my prescription is I increase my water. I take 20 minutes of mindfulness, meditation, whatever you want to call it, a day. I exercise in a pool or I do my exercise seated. Okay. I wish I could remember the young woman's site, but I didn't write it down. She's a big gal like I am, and she does her exercise seated because it's too hard on her joints given the situation she's in right now. And those actually work because I feel the difference. I try to eat proper as I can. For me, it's very small portions. It's not overeating. I am hardest thing ever is to cut out that eating in the middle of the night when I wake up and I'm hungry because I eat very small meals. That happens quite often. And so now I'll go downstairs and drink a glass of water and see if that does the trick. Most of the time it does. So do you see what I'm getting at, you guys? It's like that we really have to take a firm role in our own self-care. You can't expect therapy and meds to do all the work for you or your therapist. Therapy itself will do a lot of the work because you have to be interactive with your therapy. But you can't expect your therapist to solve your problems. You have to work to solve your own problems. If you're on medication, you can't expect the medication to make everything go away. You have to be active in your own health, your own wellness. And those things I was just talking about is really key to helping your wellness. I'm not saying don't drink, don't smoke, don't eat sugar, don't drink caffeine. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is moderation is key. Moderation is key. When you start feeling those bouts of depression coming on, you're like, oh, it's getting dark. Okay, what did you do the day before? Or maybe the day before that could be affecting the way that you're feeling. Okay, for example, when I got COVID for the second time, I was so sick and I was still coming down here and I was still chatting online and talking to everybody and trying to stay as normal as possible. But when it got really bad, I was in bed for like 2.5, maybe 3 days straight because everybody in my house had it. And I was so depressed after that. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't feel like I could get out of bed because I was still so sick. So what I ended up doing was reaching out to a friend and I video chatted with him on my phone from my bed. And that made me feel so much better because I had contact outside of my room. I don't do well when I'm left alone in a room when I'm having bad depression days. I just don't. That's just me. So, that's what I'm trying to say, though, is you need, as depression awareness, we need to be aware of what works the most and the best for us. And it really does start with being mindful of the things that you have going on in your life and the best way to deal with them. I am a pretty big advocate for medicinal marijuana. It helps my pain, absolutely helps my pain. Now I smoke really high CBD or I use an ointment because I have rheumatoid and osteoarthritis. The ointments really help me a lot. Some people will say, hi, Marie. Some people will say, oh, well, that's just silly. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, for me, it actually does. I don't even care if it's a placebo effect. I don't care. All I know is that I feel better when I do it. Therefore, I do it. And that is what is key here, you guys. Now, if you're engaging in self-destructive behavior, like, let's see, I don't know, getting punched in the face to make yourself feel better or having sex with random people just to make yourself feel better. Because I've walked the road of I need to have sex to give myself some oomph, some step up and make me feel a little bit happier or a little bit of a release. I think we all have. When you're doing that to the point that you're harming yourself, it's no longer a coping mechanism. It's become something that is harmful to you, and you need to be aware of that. There are lots of things that you can do that you can take to excess, and it can become harmful. And that is where I feel like your support system and your therapist are going to play really, really big roles in your life because you have to be open and honest. There's absolutely no sense in having a good doctor-patient relationship or a good therapist-patient relationship if you're not going to be honest. There's no sense in it. If I walked in there tomorrow and said, you know what, I'm fine. Everything's peachy keen. the world is this great big red shiny juicy apple that I just want to take a bite out of. I'm not doing myself any good. What I'm doing actually is wasting the $40 that it cost me to go see my therapist. So it's I'm sorry. Beck just posted something and it threw me off. It is important. See, that would throw you off too. I know it would. The point of it is that we really need to be more proactive in our own care. And there are absolutely times when we're in the throes of what's going on with us that we are not capable of making the decisions, or we're not capable of even having a conversation. I've had days where I just couldn't talk. I just look at my husband and just like, I couldn't. I just could not freaking talk. And in those days, he took care of me. But I had to recognize the signs. And I write these things down all the time. So if I feel this, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, let me look it up here. Like I was having body aches, really bad body aches for the last like 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, okay, body aches for me mean one of 3 things. 1, I'm having an autoimmune flare. 2, I caught fucking COVID again. Or 3, I'm not doing enough movement for my health. And that is what I ended up knowing. I knew that I was not doing enough movement for my physical health. And it was because I was dealing with some issues with my work, and it just wasn't to the point where I was taking those daily walks like I like to take and everything like that. So it's definitely something that I recognized in myself. And that is part of being self-aware. And it's part of self-care, because if you're not aware of what's going on in your body, how can you expect anybody else to be aware of what's going on with you and how to help you? And I know for some people who are new to the mental health game, that is a lot. I'm not talking about starting all out where I'm at. Okay. Like I've explained, I had my first diagnosis when I was 17 years old. I'm 52. It's taken me a very long time to get where I am. A very long time. And you have to do that, and you have to give yourself the time to do that. But in order to give yourself the time to do that and develop a good self-care plan, a good wellness awareness plan, you have to be honest, and you have to take the time that you need to heal when you have these breakdowns. Okay? No decision in the world should be made immediately after a breakdown. No, not ever. And I've been there. We've all been there. We're like, I can't do it. I can't do any of this anymore. I just want to end it. The sun will never come out. We have a rule in my house, and it's not always easy to stick to the rule, you guys. But the rule is after 12 hours, you can talk about it. Just think about it, calm down, get your perspective. After 24, you can make a decision. And after 48, you can make changes. Because until you're 48 hours post breakdown, you are not in a place where you should be making life-altering or life-changing decisions, or even friend-changing decisions. You should not be doing that for 48 hours, because you don't know what you're going to feel like in 48 hours. And I think that is such an important fact that if we could get, and again, not easy, people who are in the place where they're suicidal and having these harmful thoughts, they're lucky to make it minute by minute. But that is why we have to be aware and own up and keep our support systems in place and let them know how much we love and need them in our lives. And the first step to that, you guys, is apologizing for the harm that we cause. It's not easy, but it has to be done. It absolutely has to be done. We have to own up for the carnage that we create. I'm not saying anybody meant to create it, but we created it. Okay? And our support systems know that we have mental health disorders. They are well aware. And they're like, yeah, I probably know this stuff better than she does. Because my husband knew what was coming on sooner than I did, because he had been studying it for so long. But it doesn't mean that we can say, well, I just had a breakdown. No. Like I said earlier, no excuses. I'm sorry for my behavior. I'm sorry my behavior caused you pain. I'm sorry that I took out my pain on you, and I love and appreciate you. That's what we should be giving to our support system, because they are that vital in our managing of our disease process. They're absolutely that vital. Wow, heavy topic, huh? Gosh, you know, when I get going on some of these, I just don't stop, do I? But it is an absolute necessary thing, because like I said, it is Depression Awareness Month. And if we can make, or if I can make, or we all can make one person perk up and say, oh, wait, that kind of made sense to me. And maybe it makes their quality of life just a little bit better. Or they have that moment of going, oh my God, it is worth everything that I go through and worth all the research that I did. So I'm going to make a break what I was thinking. So Beck, this is where you and I are going to agree to disagree. I can't control my PTSD either. I absolutely cannot. I cannot. It happens out of nowhere. I don't know where it's coming from, but I feel like I still owe those people that I harm emotionally, verbally, physically. I still feel like that I owe them an apology for my actions, because whether I can control it or not, I took the action. Now, when your support system knows and loves you like mine does, they're like, it's okay. We know it wasn't actually you. We know that you did not set forth to do that harm. But I feel like, out of respect and love for what I have, I owe that apology. Because, you know, my main support system, well, no, Beck, you're right. I'm the same way. If I had control, I would never blow up. Absolutely. I would never punch my husband in the face. I never got into my children's faces and screamed, or put my foot through the wall, or screamed at people on your stream and embarrassed myself. I would have never done those things if I had control over it. But I still feel, and this is where I'm at in my process, and you might be in a different place. And that's, I think, where the difference is coming from, is that I understand that this is where I'm at. In order for me to feel bitter about the whole situation, I owe the people that I caused harm to an apology. And those people will know that I didn't mean it. I wasn't in my right mind. They will know that, but it still helps them to be there for me on a different occasion if I apologize for my actions, and they will know that they are loved still, they're appreciated. And no matter what I say in those moments, because I can be a bitch, whatever I say in those moments, I didn't mean it. And that's what makes me be able to progress in my care of my PTSD and my mental health disorders. It may not be the same for you. Different people are in different places in different times of their lives. Like I said, I've been, you know as well as I do how long I've been dealing with this. It's a very long time, and it's taken a lot of effing therapy and a lot of work to get where I'm at today. But I like where I'm at today, and that's the reason. You guys all know that. That's the reason. Again, we're gonna have to. I'm not gonna get into that. It is. I feel like. I'm trying to think about how to say this. I feel like everyone has their triggers with PTSD, whatever it is. Okay. They have that trigger that makes you feel like you're being attacked or came after. I think that's a common thing with PTSD problems, is that you feel attacked, or somebody's coming after you, or somebody's coming for you. I think the thing is that my family knows and avoids my family knows what to avoid, and they can avoid it. But people who are not like close or not in your life on a daily don't know your triggers, and they don't know to tread lightly around those things. So I guess that's where I would go with that, is I would say that, like, I know my triggers, and I'm responsible for avoiding my triggers as much as I can. I don't think the world is responsible for tiptoeing around me. But that's, again, just the That's just my thought process. My thought process might be completely different than other people's thought processes. That's what works for me. That's what worked for me to deal with the guilt that I feel from my PTSD outbursts, and help me be open and honest with with being able to express my love and through my love language. And I think that's the best thing for me. Each person is different, like I've said. If that what I'm saying doesn't work for you and you have a different system, I'm all in. I would love to hear what system works for you, so like we could really put something out there, because this is one person, my producer and I, so it's two people that put on the show, and it is my passion. My passion is to help other people that are in having issues with their mental health, and trying to prepare them and give them ideas how to deal with things. So I'm all absolutely 100% in. If somebody wants to come on and talk about their PTSD and the way that they deal with things, I'm absolutely 100% in. Please get a hold of me. My email is debbiesue70@gmail.com. Please get a hold of me. I'm on Facebook. And if you can't get a hold of me, my producer knows how to get a hold of me. So maybe he can hook you up with, if you know him and you're not comfortable coming to me directly, he can definitely help you out with that. And that is something I would love to do. I would love to have anybody on here that wants to talk about the way that they deal with things, so that we can put as many options out there for as many different people as possible, because it is important that we put forth as many options as possible, because we're all different people. We all have different stressors. We all have different mental health disorders. You know, several people I know have complex PTSD like I do, but we all deal with it very differently. And that's the whole point of the show, is to get together and put together a way for us to deal with the things that are in our life in a more constructive manner. So what I say may not work for you, but one other person may work for you. And what that other person says, maybe something of theirs works and something of mine works, and you put it together and you get your own game plan for your own self-care and your own self-wellness. That is the whole goal. So y'all, it's getting late, so we're going to be wrapping it up. I'm not having an after party tonight, but I'm asking you guys to please jump on over to Twitch and check out Overprotective Atheist. She is going to be streaming here in about 3 minutes when I get off. And please check her out, support her. She's a good friend of mine. She's going to be, I'm not sure exactly what the subject matter is tonight, but she usually takes on some falsities and general baloney that certain sectors of our society likes to put out. I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible. If I wasn't on a live stream, I probably would be like, yeah, whatever. So on that note, y'all, I will see you next week. And next week is the 15th, I think that's what it is. Yeah, I'll see you guys then. And if anybody has any requests, comments, or concerns, please send them in. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And again, I want to put a general shout out to everyone who is supporting my channel. I appreciate you so very much. I'm up to 123 followers at this point, which is absolutely amazing. So amazing. And I appreciate and love all you guys for all your love and support. Remember to take care of you, and you're beautiful just the way you are. Love y'all. Good night.